Hey, how's it going?
I'm doing well, Morgan. What about yourself?
I'm doing well too. Thanks for having me on this.
Of course, man. I'm here to help anybody out that needs it. Now, not everybody, just most people who I know have talent. There you go.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
True or false? I started making pizza dough about 20 minutes ago, and I was like, I
Okay.
have time. I have time. And then 4:59 hit, and the pizza dough is now in the fridge. But I was like, oh shit, I don't have time.
My wife's been on a big sourdough kick. So I kind of
Okay.
you have to do you have to have a starter and everything for pizza dough as well?
You can have a sourdough
Okay.
pizza dough and have a start to
Yeah.
everything, but no, this one will just use not instant yeast. It's the one that you put in the fridge after you open the jar.
Okay. Yeah.
And yeah, it's a lot of work, but I put it off from I needed to do it Wednesday, and I just put it off till today.
Well, they'll have pizza soon and that'll be
Oh, yes. Oh my gosh. 24 hours from now, oh, I'm gonna have pizza.
good.
Uh, congratulations. Sorry, my dog just drank water and is now licking me. Congratulations on this movie, man. I watched the entire thing. I can say that I sat down and I watched all of it, and it was very funny. I enjoyed every single second.
Oh, thanks so much. Really appreciate it. Yeah, that it's definitely was made to watch in one sitting, so that's great to hear.
I like it's micro budget is just I don't want to be insulting to the characters in the movie, but when I was watching this movie that I liked, and then they were making this movie that I know I would hate, like I did,
Oh
I
yeah,
was like, Meteor
and you can
sounds so
insult the
stupid.
characters. There's, they're not very likable, or at least our lead is not, not a
Well,
guy whose behavior you want to mimic.
let's start with him because I think from the get-go, he comes out as kind of this obnoxious person who like even if they were only spending a week making this movie, I don't know if you could handle a week with him.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, so that's Patrick Noth, who I co-wrote the film with, and he plays Terry, who is a real, um, I don't know how better to say it, just a asshole, just a jerk, and very inept. And it was really fun because his wife in real life, Emily, plays his wife in the film,
Hmm.
and we would screen this movie for people, and without a doubt, we would get some comments, from the audience that are like, "I just don't see why she's married to him," and then we'd be like, "They're married in real life," and they'd go, "Oh, okay, got it."
I had that concern almost instantly when she came on with the snacks. And I went, if she's really married to him in real life, then I'm good. I'm gonna have to ask Morgan this because I'm gonna be pissed. Like, but I understand that he is playing a character, so
Oh yeah,
obviously,
totally.
yeah,
Yeah, Patrick's such a sweetheart. He's the exact opposite of that type
good.
of guy. And I feel honestly like to play a guy like that, you have to have so much self-awareness that the character doesn't have, like Terry would not be able to play Terry,
Right,
but
right.
Patrick can play Terry. Yeah.
There's a quality about him that is it's kind of like oh God, what is his name? I'm thinking Danny what's his name? From South Carolina and makes all
Oh,
his
Danny McBride.
yeah, Danny McBride.
Yes.
His
Yeah.
characters are very despicable, and I've been rewatching a bunch of clips of Eastbound and Down.
Oh yeah.
All of his characters are very despicable, but in the end, people still like him and hang out with him. I think with Patrick's character, it would be he's despicable, and I understand why throughout the film people are kind of pulling away from him in such a way that it feels like there's no way for him to come back.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, I love Danny McBride. Eastbound and Down, huge influence on this. Like the way David Gordon Green and Jody Hill and all them, crafted those characters and those stories was very formative to me. I think the show came out when I was in high school, and I just remember kind of watching that and being like, "Oh my gosh, you can do this! You can have
Yeah.
a show like this with a guy who's this crass and bad and and still make it like entertaining and fun." And so, that was definitely a big influence on this. I think it's interesting to hear from audiences because like I think that ultimately at the end of the day, like Patrick's performance is so likable that you tolerate how horrible Terry is because it's
Yeah.
kind of fun to watch, almost like The Office, right? Like watching Michael Scott stick his foot in his mouth
Hmm.
over and over and over again throughout the course of that series just gives you like so much comedy ammo that
Yeah.
even though you might disagree with what he's saying, it's fun to watch him squirm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And it's nice that you surrounded him with he's very funny, but you also surrounded him with other great comedic actors with John Gabris and Mike Mitchell and then when you have people pop in like Chris Parnell and friend of the show Maria Bamford, I say friend of the show, we spoke once, but when you have people like that pop in and just play for a couple of minutes even for a scene, if that, it all still works. It is so believable. And and then you give them a timetable of a timeline of, hey, we've got to finish this in a day. Like it's
yeah,
it's that's a lot, that's carrying a lot of the simple, high concept. We're making a movie about a movie.
that's right. Yeah, and I think like everybody really shines in this, and I'm so proud of our cast. Like I was just very thankful to have them. I think like what we really tried to do was just play to everybody's strengths. Like we had a script, we had written a script, but good chunk of the people in this film are really talented improvisers, and so we
Mhm.
wanted to be sure to like cultivate an environment where they would feel comfortable to like bring their own sense of humor to these scenes. So even if the character was written in a certain way, they couldn't help but just bring a little bit of themselves to it. So we would film it
Right.
a couple times as written, and then and more or less just let people run with it and
Yeah.
and improvise. And I think it really comes through because even though some of the jokes are like really absurd and out there and really kind of wacky and zany, there's a element of it that feels slightly realistic throughout. And I think it's
Right.
because these people are playing like elements of themselves a little
Yeah.
bit. Yeah.
When you two were scripting it, did it was it as long as it took to shoot, or like did you take more time with it, more care because you were planning and plotting, or did you feel like, hey, since we want to do this in an indie micro budget kind of way, we're gonna write this in the same style, in the same vein?
Yeah, I write relatively quickly. I don't really collaborate with other writers too often. So, I mean, I've written a couple screenplays with other people, but
Mhm.
Patrick and I working together, it really just made it go so quickly because we would kind of improvise together, like as the characters, and we sent a lot of texts back and forth, and then we would either like meet up on Zoom, bang out some scenes, or like split some stuff up. I always outline pretty heavily before I start writing just to like avoid any sort of writer's block situation. And also
Right.
because it's a lot easier to change like story structure stuff if you have like a 10-page document than it is to change like a
Mhm.
100-page document. So we had outlined pretty extensively. And then also just the constraints of writing a movie um, where you have literally almost everything in mind of how you're going to do it. Like the location, like I knew we could get this house. Like
Mhm.
we wrote it for our friends initially, like before we ever went out to like some of the bigger people. A lot of the folks in the cast were Patrick and I's friends who we did improv with in New York at UCB.
Wow.
So like Gabrus taught us improv. Don Finelli, we were coming up with, who plays the camera op. I know Nate Fernald really well. Um, we knew Mitch, so we asked Mitch. It's kind of like that. So
Yeah.
we wrote for people. So like I wrote for Neil. I wrote for the house. I wrote for the amount of days I thought that we could possibly afford, and all of those constraints like really helped
Okay.
because it just made it go pretty simply and easily. So the script was we did it pretty quickly.
That's
Yeah,
good to
but
hear.
yeah.
When I have like on my Google Drive, there's like, I don't know, maybe 20 or 30 different outlines. And and sometimes I'll go back and revisit them. Some of them are like 10 years old, 15 years old, and I'll go back and revisit them and I go, this is not good. And then I'll read
Yeah.
something from like last year and I'll go, oh, this is very funny. And I found I knew my voice obviously in 2025, but reading something from 2015 or 2016, I go, Jesus Christ, like did I even know what a movie was?
Yeah, but that, you know what, that's writing, and I think 'cause I write professionally, like for the studio system out here in Hollywood, and um, even the stuff that I've turned in like for money, I look back on and I go, oh my gosh, I can't believe I still am working at all. And I do think it's just your sensibilities and your taste changes as you get older, and also
Mhm.
your craft changes, and you get more confident and more self assured, and things become a little easier, like story structure starts to become like a little more innate,
Mhm.
whereas like when I was in college studying screenwriting, it was like I didn't really know Joseph Campbell. I didn't really understand a lot of that stuff. Or you're like following a blueprint, like Save the Cat or something. And then
Yeah.
you find like after doing it for 10 years or something, you just kind of, that stuff's in you, and
Right.
you can kind of figure out like where a low moment needs to happen, or like where a character needs to have a win and stuff. And so, um, it does, I feel like it gets easier and easier.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
I hate to quote Malcolm McDowell, but or Malcolm Gladwell. Jesus Christ, Malcolm McDowell.
I was like,
Uh,
I'd love to hear what Malcolm McDowell had to say.
I love The Father. It's one of my favorite movies.
Yeah,
But Malcolm Glad that 10,000 hours. It's like you just have to keep doing it and keep doing it again and again. I can go back. I'm primarily from the news world, so I've worked at
okay, cool.
NBC and the Weather Channel and CNN and a bunch of places. But when I go back and look at something that I wrote, because you have to put on your portfolio, like
Sure,
from those years, it just was not good. And
sure.
then as I kept getting the reps up, kind of like being in the gym, kept getting the reps up. It's the styling and the writing and the use of verbiage just becomes better. And I noticed that. And when I look, I'm trying to stay off the internet for just like perusing or anything. I don't want to hang out on Reddit or whatever. But not that
Yeah,
there's anything wrong with that. But I often notice that people write in the same way, especially if they just hang out on like one side of the internet. Like if you go to Reddit, you'll see the same styling of writing, big paragraph, one sentence that kind of summarizes it all, and then another big or
yeah,
whatever. And and I feel like that gets in the way of a lot of people because you see some great creative people kind of trending towards that. If they comment on Instagram or post on Instagram a lot or TikTok, then everybody is just kind of focusing on how that writing is, as opposed to, go read a book or listen to
sure,
audiobook if that's your thing, or
sure.
just like get some life experience so that you can be a better comedian or a better writer or even a better actor, because I think that all helps in the end.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's like this homogeny that's happened even in screenplay stuff too, where like for a while, the type of comedy films that were being made, or the type of humor that you were seeing in films, were like, you know, I write a lot of stuff for DC,
Mhm.
and Warner Brothers, and so like no shade at all to superhero movies, like at all. Um, but like, there was a tendency to have this kind of like Joss Whedon-y Marvel like quippiness,
Yeah.
where like the comedy films, just due to the nature of like how they're marketed and greenlit and stuff, they don't tend to travel very well overseas. They're kind of an American domestic product, and so in order for these movies to like get made, a lot of the comedies started becoming like action comedies, or like,
Okay.
you could have a helicopter. If you have a helicopter and you have some explosions and it
Mhm.
happens to involve like the CIA or like a global chase or something, or spies or whatever, it can be funny, but it needs that hook for, you know, Europe and Asia and stuff,
Right.
to be like, I don't know who Will Ferrell is in mainland China, but I know that I want to see him jump out of a helicopter possibly.
Mhm.
And so a lot of the jokes became kind of like cool, or like,
Yeah.
oh, I hope that monster's still on a diet or whatever. Like, after they're about to get eaten by some
Yeah. Yeah.
glob or something, and like you could just kind of see that happening. Whereas like I came up, loved like Step Brothers and Hot Rod, and
Mhm.
I loved the Larry Sanders Show on HBO, and loved The Office and Eastbound and all that stuff. And so we were just trying to kind of do stuff that made us laugh, and
Yeah.
we didn't have to worry about like, is it going to travel, and how many people are going to see it, outside the country or anything like that, because also I was the financier, so
Yeah.
I didn't
Yeah.
have to answer to anybody but my own bank account. And maybe I should have been, a little more on top of myself about what marketability really means.
Hey, you know what? It's great. I believe Patrick says in the movie himself that these comedies they go to the streamers and the streamers are buying up comedies all over the place. So
Right. Yeah,
there you go.
exactly. Yeah.
Well, on the Larry Sanders tip, I just rewatched the pilot again because I have it on DVD and then I bought it digitally because I love wasting money. And
Sure.
in the pilot, it's the show from the beginning. That show has like had that same voice from
Yeah.
the beginning, and then he gets hooked on Excedrin on on those
Yeah.
pills, and then at the end of the series, he wants to end the show. He doesn't want to be a host anymore, and it's been 10 years. And there's something about that show, even though it had on big stars from the beginning. Who was it? David Duchovny was his best friend
Oh
as
yeah,
David
the
Duchovny,
best.
and he
Yeah.
was in love with him.
Yeah.
It's fascinating to me how in that, and even in here, you can have a cameo in micro budget, and it still seems as though even with Nicole or and Brandon, it's just because
Yeah.
to me those two people are huge, are on the same
Yeah,
level as
me
Chris
too.
Parnell and Maria
Totally.
Bamford because
Yeah.
of the projects that they've worked in. So, but it
Yeah.
still feels very approachable and light enough for me to want to enjoy for 90 minutes.
Sure. Yeah, it's funny, like Gary Shandling, biggest hero of mine in the world. I have so much Larry Sanders Show stuff here, actually. Let me show you this. This is kind of fun. I have like the old original like HBO
Oh, wow.
tapes that they would put in and broadcast off of
That is
like back in the
crazy.
day. Um, and so yeah, just big fan of his and how he thought about comedy and I think a thing that he would say all the time that was taught to him by his acting coach Roy London was like, can you be brave enough to discover something about yourself
Hmm.
while the cameras are rolling? Like, can you let go of the facade of I'm on a set, I'm have all this baggage that I brought with me, and can I like discover something in the moment? And I think that was really cool for me to hear coming from an improv background, because
Yeah.
that's really I think what improv is all about. It's like listening to your partner, like helping each other out, saying yes to things, like just being present, listening, and yeah. So like I think that everybody on set like really came with that same mentality, and it
Mhm.
felt like my job was just to create an environment where everybody felt like comfortable to do that stuff, and
Hmm.
I think everybody really shined.
How did you, as a director and the financier, how did you come in with that mindset and then also, not take advantage and have like an angry thought, come over if someone didn't get a line right or if the day was going long? How were you able to manage all of that on top of being the person who was in charge of everything?
Yeah, I think like my North Star throughout all of it was just like I'm very lucky to have these people here. We paid almost everybody got paid the same, which
Mhm.
was like SAG minimum, which isn't much money at all.
Right.
It's like $220 a day or something, including Seal, who's in the movie. Like we
Wow.
paid Seal the same amount as everybody else,
I
and
was
and I
dancing
think
around it. I didn't want to ruin that cameo.
it's okay. I think we're kind of if people made it this far in the interview, they probably saw the movie. I hope, maybe. But like, um, so I think that I was just always cognizant of the fact that I was very lucky to have everybody here,
Mhm.
and the opposite thing we wanted to do was just like make anybody uncomfortable or get mad at anybody. It just would be impossible for me to be anything other than thankful for
Right.
their time, and so we just really didn't want to have an exploitative set. And so the way we scheduled it was like shot for 3 days, then took a weekend off, then we shot for 5 days, then we took a weekend off, like then we shot for like another 3 days, and that was it. And then we never went long, like never
Wow.
went over. um, and I think that was just partially just okay, nobody's doing this for money. Let's just try to make it as fun as possible
Right.
for everybody. So, but yeah, I mean, it was stressful for sure. Some of the days for sure. Also doing improv and everything. It helps that we shot like 3 cameras all the time, so the coverage would just kind of be one and done almost.
Amazing.
But yeah, people were pretty good. I was pretty like, okay, great. I don't really have to worry about the cast. I just have to worry about the logistics of like, did that light break? Like, how are things going? You know, and
Yeah.
then it's my job as a director, I think, to just like shield everybody from the panic and the everything that's happening behind the scenes.
Okay. What
Yeah.
was the editing process like? Did you, obviously you were hands-on with it, but to have this movie tell a story, and even still, it must be much more difficult to have a documentary telling the story of them making a movie. So I can't imagine how you approached the editing part of it.
Yeah, editing was tough. So we had a wonderful editor named Benjamin Moses Smith who's cut some really great movies. Like he did Spree and Wobble Pal, some stuff with like Eugene
Wow.
um, and yeah, he's really good editor. So like a lot of people who worked on the crew and in the cast and stuff, this was their first feature.
Okay.
But we kind of knew, all right, maybe the person who should have worked on features before is probably our editor, just in terms of like the logistics of how you even deliver a movie, which I didn't really know anything about. Like I could possibly understand how to cut one, but in terms of like, I don't know, just how you organize all those materials in order to hand them over to a distributor is like a whole other job. And Benjamin just cut a really great assembly. It
Mhm.
was maybe about 2 hours long. I think the final runtime of this movie is like an hour 28. And right out the gate, I was like, I'm really into this. Like, this is really good. Like, let's just start getting into it and refining things and trimming some stuff up. But the most difficult part of the process, I think, was just because there was so much improv. Uh, you'd swap out a take, you'd swap out a joke, and it might completely change the scene, or
Right.
it might be the same story beats, like the scene's story is integral, and that's all still tracking,
Mhm.
but the sense of humor around it, or this joke or something, would be wildly disparate,
Mhm.
and both would be really funny. And I would be like, I truly don't know what's funnier. Like I'm like, I think that
Yeah.
one's funnier, and then you'd see it too many times, and you'd go, maybe that other one was funnier because it's more fresh. Like I've seen it less, so maybe we should go back to that. And then you'd kind of swap and swap and swap. And so what we started doing was like doing these like test screenings where we would play somebody cut A and then we would play somebody cut B.
Right.
And we would just sort of track who was laughing hardest when and seeing if like the movie was testing better and better. And so we kind of landed on a nice a nice thing because it's fun to watch with a crowd and an audience because some people find this type of sense of humor really funny, and some
Mhm.
people find this type of sense of humor really funny, and we kind of have all of that going on. So that was the toughest part of editing, as well as just not having money to have like one post production facility just like button everything up and do everything for us. Like we had to kind of like go to my colorist in New York City, and then
Yeah.
we had our sound mixer here in LA, and like everybody was like zooming and talking to each other, and I was really proud. Everybody really made it work, and it was awesome, and everybody did a great job. But you know, in a traditional movie, it's like everybody's in one big building, and we just
Right.
do it all together, and then done. You know, so that was
But
tough.
that's kind of, that's where the world is right now,
True.
for
Yeah.
especially our world of entertainment. I work for a set of TV networks that everybody is either in New York or LA, and then there's other people in my section. I'm a producer, so I'm here in Atlanta, and then there's people in Denver. There's people, just and we're able to do this, and they use like Frame.io, and we have meetings all the
Yeah.
time, and it's but we make it work, and
Yeah.
the communication is there, and it's on point, and I think that's a very big part of it. Whereas when I was at CNN, I was in the control room, and we were all screaming at each other, and even still,
Right.
like even at that point, things were not getting done. I can't tell you how many times something was missed because somebody was yelling at somebody else, or they had the wrong information. And yeah, I love CNN. They're lie news. They're lying all the time, as our great president says. Yeah, it's. I think communication is very key, and it's very important. And it comes across in the film that at least I wouldn't know that this was not all handled in just LA. I could only assume, like, oh wow, it was, even if the team was small, they were all in LA, and they were all able to talk to each other. But To know that it was done on different time zones and probably in different timelines, and everybody's just communicating on the computer on the internet. It really shows that you don't have to be stuck in one area, because I'm sure that there's people who don't want to move to LA but who want to do lighting or do makeup or do costuming and set designs, and
Sure.
they want to stay, Danny McBride in the Carolinas or in
Yeah.
Denver or wherever.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, especially as a writer now, it's like why am I here and paying so much rent? I
Yeah.
like I don't really know what's going on. Like not a lot is shooting here, So I mean that was the one nice thing I will say is like we shot this right before the strikes, and
Okay.
the town has obviously been on, a, for lack of a better word, like a bit of a downswing since
Hmm.
COVID, really, and with all the mergers going on. So I think we were partially able to get like such a good cast because we were providing like healthcare hours like right before the strike. We did
Yeah.
it all union and SAG and everything. So we were able to snag local people. But I mean, I've just been traveling around the country for the last like 2 years with this film, seeing all sorts of incredible indies not made in LA that are absolutely amazing. Playing right alongside us
Yeah.
in places like St. Louis and Kansas and Birmingham, and I mean there's some really really amazing indies coming out of things that are not LA. Like if you're going the indie route, you do not need to be in the showbiz town,
Right.
not at all. Yeah.
What festival had were your like what festivals stood out for you? What were your favorites? Was it the traditional the Austin Film Festivals or Sundance or Slam Dance, or what were it the small was it the smaller ones that helped you out?
Yeah, I mean, we didn't get into any of the big five. Like, we got into
Interesting.
no film fest markets. So we didn't get into Sundance. We didn't get into South by. We didn't even get into Austin. We got into a bunch of regional festivals all throughout the
Okay.
country. My good friend Mike Cheslick made a movie called Hundreds of Beavers, which also had a similar path. Like, it did. I don't think it got into any of like the real big ones, at least not at first. And his advice to me was like, just start playing. Like, just
Hmm.
say yes to places and start playing and go if you can and start cultivating an audience because these are in college towns. The film festivals have fan bases of people that live there. And you just need people to see your movie and you need to go meet with them and you need to start like getting them to rally around your movie.
Hmm.
And so instead of really like keeping it precious and holding our premiere and figuring out, oh, we don't want to play certain markets because then we might overplay and then they won't book us theatrically. We were like, this movie has had a weird path from the jump. Like, let's just, in the same spirit as we had no jerks on set and we only wanted to work with people who wanted to work with us, it's like,
Hmm.
let's just give it our all to these festivals that actually want to have us. And so we ended up premiering at Sidewalk Film Festival in Birmingham, Alabama, as part of the secret screening. And then the very next day, or like very shortly thereafter, we played Calgary, went to Canada. We played Buffalo that same weekend, and maybe Tacoma, Washington. And so we just like had 5 film festivals announced already, and then we ended up playing, I don't know, 60 something over the course of 2 years.
Wow.
Um, and sometimes the really small ones were the best. Like met incredible filmmakers. I think a lot about Bainbridge Island Film Festival. That was such an incredible experience because I got to meet Robert Kalandi, who made this great movie called The Featherweight, and met the team behind EFIS, which is a really great movie, and Fantasy Gets a Mattress. All these were like really good indies. And then yeah, we played like Italy at Knot Film Festival. That was incredible,
Whoa.
and they have a mockumentary film festival in France. That was a blast. So
That's cool.
yeah, it was great. And then now that we're out on streaming and everything, like it's been really cool to see these comments from people on Reddit or YouTube or Instagram or whatever, where they're saying like, I saw this in Beloit and I've been telling all my friends about it. It's awesome. Like it really means a lot to us that somebody saw it at a film festival and then is thinking about it like a year later and telling their friends about it. Like that's invaluable.
I think this movie has the makings of, word of mouth, like popularity by word of mouth. If people can continue talking about it, then it will do so well. Because I think, even with the shift to streaming, with for comedies in particular, I think people are still in search of great classic comedies. And as you mentioned, Step Brothers or Hot Rod, that's how Hot Rod was found. Hot Rod wasn't the
Yeah.
best movie when it came out, and then
Yeah.
suddenly, people are still talking about it, what, 15, 16, 17 years later, something like that.
Yeah.
So it's important that comedies are still made, and that people can still get some sort of enjoyment out of it, because I watch comedies, and in particular indie comedies, all the time. I just watched Sacramento from
Oh yeah.
Michael Aaron. I don't know how to pronounce his last name. I talked to him too. I interviewed him too. But I watched Sacramento, and it was great, and
Yeah.
I enjoyed my time with it. And I think, as big and funny as a movie like Step Brothers can be, I think indie comedies can stick with people more because they often surprise you. And when I watched Micro Budget, it surprised me. And there were jokes in there that I'm still thinking about, in particular, giving Brandon a cake and saying, "You eat that." And then just like, that's it's silly. It's silly.
Yeah.
And
It's
you're right.
silly.
The absurd stuff works. I love it.
Thanks. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think we hope to just sort of say something a little bit about the time that we're in, specifically with how it relates to the movie business, but also just the time in which I think people are kind of failing upwards into massive positions of power, and just taking a look at like who we are putting in charge of things,
Yeah.
even outside of the film industry. And so I'd be very happy with if in 10 years somebody wanted to screen this at a theater or something and just do, I'd be so excited. It's not really about the money for me at all. I think it's just about finding like-minded people who enjoy the film.
Yeah. And also, to put on your IMDb, and then some studio head will, like, who's looking around, like, oh, you know what, I'm gonna get this guy.
Yeah, hopefully we'll see. Yeah.
As I think about it now, it also feels, you mentioned the time we're in, it also feels kind of like a COVID movie. I think it did Judd Apatow's The Bubble better than that movie did
Oh,
itself,
thanks.
because
Thank
also that
you.
movie sucks ass. But but Micro Budget feels like, yes, we all shot it in this house, and even though the crew is offsite at a motel,
Yeah.
everybody else is living in this house, and they kind of, some of them hate each other, or one of them hates some of the other
Sure.
people. So
Yeah.
that's how it kind of works.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. Like, it's funny. Like, we shot it in 2023, but COVID mandates were still going on because of SAG. So, like, people always ask me, like, what was the most surprising cost? Like, what was the most expensive thing that you didn't see coming? And it was like the staggering amount of money we had to pay, like a SAG COVID compliance officer, and like
Wow.
buying all the tests and swabbing. And then the day we wrapped was the day they lifted the COVID mandate. So it would have just saved us like a couple tens of thousands of dollars for
Damn.
shoot.
Oh my
Yeah, if we
gosh.
shot like a couple weeks later. But yeah, like it all takes place in one location, and I feel like we all lived in one location for like a full year, and
Mhm.
it's got that claustrophobic feeling to it for sure a
Yeah.
little bit. Yeah.
And you also paid that intimacy coordinator for a full day of work, and you just had to knock him out like really, very early, very, very early.
That's right.
Well, Morgan, I don't want to take up too much more of your time. Thank you so much for sitting down with me. I loved it. It's a great movie, and I really do hope people go and see it. And I wish you all the best with promoting it and putting it out there.
Well, I thank you very much, Chad. I really, really appreciate you having me, and big fan of your TikToks and your YouTube and all that stuff too. So you've got really great guests. It's an honor to I'll be on that list. So thank
Oh,
you.
yes, yes, yes. You're very welcome. You're joining the ranks of Larry the Cable Guy, and and some other Maria Bamford, friend of
Marie
the show.
Bamford, Sierra Catal. I did a show called Earth to Ned with her. She's the best. She's super
Oh,
funny.
yes,
Yeah, and Matt
she's very
Koff too.
funny.
I knew Matt in New York. I used to do stand up way back in the day, and knew Matt that way too. So it was cool to see him.
Improv and stand up. You're one of the few that has blazed the trail of both.
Yeah, now I'm just hiding behind a camera. So
Hey,
keep it that
hey,
way.
that's where the real prize is, because you don't have
That's
to
right.
do much except for telling people what to do.
I like that much better.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
Yeah.
again, thanks again, and good luck, and congrats. It's a good movie. It's a good movie. I
Cool.
liked it.
Thanks, Shed. Really
All
appreciate
right,
it.
all right,
All
Morgan.
right.
Have a good one.
Bye.